You open your banking app for like the third time today. Checking looks fine. Savings is sitting there with this number that used to feel impossible. Maybe it's $7,800 or $12,400, or you're hovering just under that $20,000 line, and you keep rounding it up in your head because it feels better. You stare at it for a second and think, okay, this is actually real. I'm not at zero. I'm not in full panic mode anymore. But then this other voice kicks in. Does this actually change anything? Or is this just a slightly less stressful version of the same life? My name is Mark, and I spend way too much time thinking about that moment, that weird middle zone where you're not broke, you've got a few thousand tucked away, maybe you're past the first 10K, and you're wondering when things are really going to feel different. Because everyone talks about how everything changes after your first $10,000 or after your first 100K, and nobody really explains this awkward, underrated milestone in the middle, where, honestly, everything changes even more, around $20,000. By the end of this, I want you to see that number in a totally different way, not as some random milestone finance YouTube made up, but as this quiet line where emergencies stop being full-blown crises, your money actually starts helping you back, your identity with money shifts, and your options, real, life-changing options, start to open up. So let's talk about why that is and what to do if you're nowhere near it yet, almost there or already past it and wondering, okay, now what? The gap between a few thousand and 20,000. There's a big emotional difference between having $2,000, $5,000, $10,000, and then having $20,000. At $2,000, one car repair can basically erase your progress. At $5,000, you're proud but also nervous. At $10,000, you're starting to breathe a little easier. At $20,000, something deeper shifts. Think of it in percentages. If you have $2,000 and a $1,000 emergency hits, you just lost 50% of your cushion. If you have $20,000 and that same $1,000 thing happens, that's 5%. Same event, completely different stress level. This is why 20K is such a big deal. It's the line where normal life stuff stops feeling like it can totally ruin you. You go from, please don't let anything happen this month, to, if something happens, it's annoying, but I'll be okay. What this means for you, if you're under that number right now, your first job is not to chase fancy investments or obsess over squeezing out an extra 1% return. Your job is to build thickness, to get to the point where a normal problem is just a problem, not a disaster. Even aiming for 5K to 10K to 15K to 20K with that mindset can change how you sleep at night. Compounding finally shows up in a way you can feel. People love to talk about compounding like it's this magical rocket booster, and it is, eventually. But at really small numbers, compounding feels like a joke. On $1,000 at 7%, that's $70 a year. On $5,000, it's $350 a year, about $30 a month. Nice, but not exactly fireworks. On $20,000, 7% is $1,400 a year. That's around $115 a month coming in whether you show up or not. Is that life-changing? No. But here's the tiny psychological trick. $1,400 is the first point where a lot of people look at their account and think, whoa, I didn't put that much in this year. My money actually grew on its own. You go from you versus the number to you plus your money versus the number. And that feeling matters more than the math, especially in the beginning. Because once you see your money truly doing something for you, it becomes way easier to keep feeding that system. Action step here. If you're around or past 20K and some of that is just rotting in a bank account, move a chunk of it into something boring and diversified, an index fund, a total market fund, a simple long-term investment. Don't get fancy, just get it working. The point isn't to become a day trader. The point is to give future you a teammate. Your identity around money quietly upgrades. This is the part nobody warns you about, in a good way.
Getting from $0 to $2,000, you feel like you're forcing yourself. Getting from $2,000 to $10,000, you feel like you're pretending to be good with money. But around $20,000, your brain starts to accept a new story. I'm someone who has money. Not, I got lucky once. Not, I had a good month. It's, this is just who I am now. I remember hitting that level in my own accounts and noticing weird little changes. I didn't feel the need to check my balance before every small purchase. Saying no to stuff didn't feel like punishment, it just felt normal. I stopped identifying as bad with money, even as a joke. When you cross 20K, the story in your head starts to shift from survival to stewardship. You're not clawing your way out anymore. You're managing and building. Why this matters? How you see yourself drives what you do when nobody's watching. If deep down you still believe, I always mess this up, you will sabotage yourself at some point, even if your numbers look good right now. So if you're getting close to that 20K line, start updating your language early. Swap I'm terrible with money for I'm learning to be great with money. Swap I hope this lasts for I'm building something on purpose. It sounds cheesy, but your brain listens. 20K buys you options, not just safety. Here's where the everything changes even more part really kicks in. Up to this point, most of the conversation is about defense. Don't get wrecked by emergencies. Don't let debt interest eat you alive. Don't live on the edge. But around $20,000, you get to play offense a little. You suddenly have the ability to take a lower-paying job that has way better upside, move cities without putting everything on a credit card, cover a few months of expenses if you want to try freelancing or starting something on the side, pay for a course, a certification, or a skill that can increase your income without panicking. You're not rich, but you're no longer trapped. One of the biggest hidden returns on that first 20K is negotiation power. It's easier to say no to a toxic job when you know you can survive a gap. It's easier to push for a raise when you're not terrified of getting fired. It's easier to walk away from a dumb financial decision because you're used to having a buffer. Action step? Once you're at or near 20K, consider carving out a small piece, maybe 5 to 10%, as an opportunity fund instead of pure emergency money. That's the money you can use to relocate, learn a high-value skill, or start a small project without touching the core cushion you've built. Defense keeps you in the game. Offense is what changes your life. The path from 20K to real wealth gets clearer. From zero, the idea of 100K or 500K saved feels like science fiction. From 20K, it starts to look possible. Not easy, but possible. Let's do some very simple, very rough math. Say you're at 20K right now, and you continue adding $800 a month, which could be a combination of 401K, Roth IRA, taxable investing, savings, etc., and earn an average of, say, 7% a year on investments over the long run. In about 6 to 7 years, you're in the neighborhood of $100,000 or more. Is that guaranteed? No. Markets move, life happens, your income changes. But the point is this. From 20K, you're no longer guessing in the dark. You can actually see how your decisions move the timeline. You go from, I'll never get there, to, oh, if I keep doing what I'm doing and maybe improve it a little, I eventually get there. Why this matters? Clarity is incredibly motivating. When you know, if I bump my savings from $500 to $700 a month, I shave years off my goal, you're way more likely to actually do it. So around 20K is a great time to run a few simple projections, decide what you want your money to be doing in 5 to 10 years, and adjust your habits with an actual picture in your head, not just vibes. If you're nowhere near 20K yet, I want to say this really clearly. If you're at $50, $500, $2,000, whatever, you're not behind. You're just in a different phase of the game. That early stage is about breaking the "I'm always at zero" cycle, getting any kind of buffer, cleaning off high-interest debt, and learning that you can actually hold on to money. Your milestones might look like first $500, first $1,000, first $5,000, first $10,000. Those all matter. They're not less than. They're the foundation that makes 20K even possible. But it is helpful to know that there's this next stage where things don't just get a little better, they get structurally different. So use that as motivation, not shame. Wrapping this up. Why does everything change even more after 20K? Because at that point, normal problems stop being existential threats. Compounding actually starts to show up on the screen. Your identity shifts from barely hanging on to building something. And you finally get a little offense, not just defense, and the path from okay to actually wealthy becomes visible instead of imaginary. If you're below that number, your job is simple. Not easy, but simple. Protect yourself from disasters, kill off the worst debt, and build that first boring, unsexy cushion. If you're around or above it, make your money start working. Protect your new identity as a person who has savings, and use a slice of that cushion to buy yourself better options in life. You don't have to do any of this perfectly. You just have to be a little less fragile, a little more intentional month after month. So maybe after this video, take 5 minutes, check where you are right now, decide what your very next milestone is, 1K, 5K, 10K, or 20K, and ask yourself, what's one tiny change I can make this month to move closer? Future you will remember that choice way more than they remember whatever you almost bought on Amazon today.